Hey guys, tonight we travel far, back through the quiet corridors of memory and dust, into a world that existed long before the neon and the noise. You're in ancient China, and you're about to spend a single day as a peasant in one of its countless mud brick villages. Spoiler alert, you probably won't survive this. The air is heavy with damp earth and smoke. Even before dawn, your muscles ache from work you haven't yet done. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're here, drop your location and local time in the comments. I love knowing where in the world you're drifting off from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wake up on a sleeping mat woven from reeds and straw. It's still dark. The thin paper window glows faintly from a moon already slipping behind the hills. A rooster outside screams like a tiny herald of suffering. The smell of smoke hangs low in your hut, the last coals from last night's fire still breathing. You can see your breath. The walls are plastered with a mixture of mud, straw, and rice husks. Cracks zigzag across them like tiny rivers. A clay oil lamp flickers in the corner, casting everything in shades of amber and soot. You can hear your wife, or maybe your mother, rustling beside the fire pit, adding a handful of dry twigs. The first hiss of boiling water is the morning's only comfort. You stretch your back. It creaks like old bamboo. Beneath the mat, you can feel the cool, packed earth. You reach for your faded hemp tunic, still damp from yesterday's sweat, and pull it over your head. The air bites your skin. The morning is not a beginning, it's a continuation. Yesterday's fatigue simply pauses long enough for the darkness to turn blue. Outside, the village stirs slowly, like a living creature waking from restless dreams. A dog barks in the distance. Someone coughs, a wet, hollow sound. You step outside and the chill catches in your throat. Mist curls across the fields. The smell of rice stubble and pig manure fills your lungs. You live among dozens of families just like yours, packed tightly along a narrow dirt road that snakes through the valley. The roofs are low and uneven, thatched with straw and reeds that leak during rain. Smoke rises from every home, twisting toward the pale morning sky. A scholar in some distant city once wrote that heaven is high and the emperor is far away. You don't know his name, but you understand his meaning perfectly. Here, no one expects justice from above. The magistrate visits once a year, maybe twice, and when he does, he takes more than he gives. The rice fields beyond the village glisten faintly in the early light. They stretch like a mirror of heaven itself, 1,000 tiny squares of water reflecting a world that doesn't care. Somewhere, a farmer calls to his ox, and the slow creak of wooden yokes begins the day's rhythm. You walk toward the communal well, carrying 2 wooden buckets that hang from a yoke across your shoulders. Each step presses your bare feet deeper into the cold mud. The buckets clank softly, in old music your body knows too well. The water is icy when you lower the rope. You splash your face, and for a moment, the shock of it wakes something alive in you. A few children chase each other near the well, their laughter thin and brittle, like glass in the cold air. Their faces are smudged with ash and joy. A woman calls them back. Don't waste energy before the fields. And they scatter toward their huts. Your breakfast waits, a thin porridge made from millet and the last handful of sweet potato shavings. You eat slowly, sitting cross-legged on the floor. The smoke stings your eyes. You can hear your stomach protest. It knows this meal must last you until the sun sets again. Historians still argue whether the average peasant in early dynastic China ate more than 2,000 calories a day. Most say less. And if they're wrong, it doesn't matter. Your body tells the truth. It's never enough. You wipe your mouth on your sleeve. You taste ashen grain. Then you glance toward the shrine shelf, 2 small clay figures. One of your ancestors, one of the earth god, Tudigong. You bow lightly, whispering for health, for luck, for just one more good harvest. The gods, as usual, say nothing. Outside, the light begins to change. The eastern sky deepens into rose and pale gold. The bamboo groves beyond the paddies shiver with invisible movement. You hear the sound of wooden bells tied around the necks of water buffalo, a clinking rhythm older than memory. The path to the fields is slick, and your sandals sink into it with each step. The smell of wet grass rises like steam. Somewhere above, cranes call across the mist, a sound so ancient it feels like the sky itself is remembering. You meet other farmers along the path, faces drawn, eyes swollen from little sleep. No one speaks much. You nod, and that's enough. Everyone's mind is already in the soil. By the time you reach your field, the sun has barely crested the ridge. The water is cold, milky with silt. You roll up your trousers and wade in. The mud closes around your legs like a slow embrace. Tiny fish dart between your feet. You bend low, gathering handfuls of seedlings from a woven basket. Your fingers move automatically, thrusting them into the watery earth in neat rows. The air hums with insects. The sound is hypnotic. Somewhere, you hear a flute, someone on the far edge of the fields playing to keep their mind awake. The tune rises and falls like breath. A curious fringe fact historians sometimes mention: some farmers in the Han era trained ducks to patrol the paddies, eating pests and weeds. You look around and smile faintly. Yes, there are ducks here too, quacking softly as they chase unseen enemies in the water. Hours pass. The sun climbs. Your back tightens, your hands wrinkle like paper left in the rain. Sweat drips into your eyes, stinging with salt. You straighten for a moment and look around. The valley stretches wide, the mountains in the distance veiled in haze. For a fleeting instant, you think it's beautiful. Then the thought fades, replaced by hunger. By midday, you'll return for a quick bowl of soup before trudging back again. But for now, the day is only beginning. The mud holds you, the work continues, and the sky above remains pale and indifferent. You don't think of history. You think of survival. And in that quiet, endless rhythm, your story begins. The mist hasn't yet lifted when you head back toward the hut for a short breakfast. The second, smaller one. The porridge has cooled, a thin film forming over it, but it's food, and that's reason enough. You sit cross-legged again, balancing the bowl between your hands, letting the steam warm your face. Outside, someone is already calling out to his oxen, the long, drawn-out gee, echoing faintly through the valley. It's strange how sound carries here, each noise a kind of ghost floating through fog. The thunk of a hoe, the slap of water against a shovel, the soft grunt of animals. Life hums at a low, patient frequency. Today's breakfast isn't rice. Rice is luxury, the good grain, meant for taxes or for the Lord's table. You get the leftovers of the lesser world. Millet, a stubborn, dry grain that clings to your teeth, boiled turnip roots, bitter but filling, and if luck smiles, a small sprinkle of salt. The salt alone feels like wealth. You eat slowly, half asleep, watching smoke curl up through the cracks in the roof. There's a sweetness to this slowness, a rhythm that modern minds rarely touch. The world outside is measured by seasons, not clocks. There are no deadlines, only the steady hunger of the earth. You scoop the last bit of porridge, scraping the bowl with your fingers. The taste of earth lingers, because the bowl itself was fired in local clay that never lost its scent. You don't notice anymore, it's simply the flavor of life. As the light strengthens, the air changes from silver to gold. You can hear the women near the well gossiping in low tones while pounding laundry against smooth stones. A child cries, then laughs when someone splashes him with cold water. You watch the smoke from every house rising upward together, twisting into a single column that the wind pulls apart. It looks like a signal to the gods, we're still here. Food, for peasants, is both miracle and mathematics. Historians still argue whether the average family in ancient rural China could keep enough stored millet to last through the lean months. Some say granaries were communal, others insist most peasants hoarded in secret, terrified of inspectors. You don't care about the debate, you know only that hunger comes early and stays late. Your neighbor, Oldly, appears at your door with a bundle of dried yam. He grins with his single tooth and drops it near your fire. "Eat these later," he says. "I traded a chicken feather for them." You both laugh, not because it's funny but because laughter here is currency too. You thank him with a bow. He doesn't stay long, there's work, always work. You watch his crooked back fade into the mist, his conical hat bobbing like a floating leaf. After breakfast, you and your wife prepare the small baskets for the midday meal. Just a handful of wild greens, a few pickled stems, a strip of dried tofu. She hums as she wraps the food in lotus leaves. Her hair is bound high, streaked with soot. She's younger than her face admits. Years here age people faster than emperors age dynasties. The fire crackles low. She glances at you and says softly, "They're saying the tax man comes soon." You groan, not from surprise but from inevitability. The tax man always comes, sometimes twice a year if the floods are bad. You owe in grain, sometimes in labor. There's a register of names somewhere, probably miswritten, probably older than your house. When the officials arrive, they bring fear wrapped in fine robes. You step outside again, chewing on a sliver of dried radish. The path to the fields glitters with dew. The oxen snort impatiently as you pass, their breath forms clouds in the cold air. Someone nearby calls out a folk song, off-key, but comforting. Your feet know where to go before your thoughts do. Down the narrow path, over the small plank bridge, across the ditch where frogs hide beneath the weeds. You pass a shrine painted red and gold, its small incense sticks burning weakly in the morning wind. Someone has left an offering, half a steamed bun, already stolen by ants. That's faith here, fleeting, practical, quietly resigned. As you reach the paddy edge again, the village behind you feels smaller, as though it might vanish if you turn too fast. You take a deep breath. The smell of water, algae, and mud fills you again. The day's first full labor begins. You bend low into the water, your hands finding the same rhythm they've known since childhood: plant, press, pat. Plant, press, pat. The motions form a quiet prayer. There's a saying among the elders: "He who controls rice controls life." You think of that sometimes when you plant, how the seed in your hand could feed a family, pay a debt, or be confiscated by soldiers. You hold power for a moment, then bury it in mud. A curious tidbit buried in old farming manuals says peasants once used night soil, human waste, as fertilizer, mixing it with ash and straw. It's true, and it's your turn this week to haul the buckets from the communal pit. You'll do it later, at dusk, when the smell seems less cruel. History may debate the dignity of ancient agriculture, but your nose knows the truth. By mid-morning, the sun turns the fog into steam. Sweat beads along your neck, soaking the collar of your tunic. You pause, leaning on your hoe, watching dragonflies hover over the water. For a moment, the field almost looks alive, an emerald ocean breathing beneath a sky too wide to name. Your wife calls from across the paddy, waving. You wave back, and even that small gesture feels human enough to keep you from dissolving into the mud. Work continues. Time slips. The rhythm becomes everything: body, breath, soil, sound. You forget what year it is, what emperor sits in the palace miles away. When you finally lift your head, the sun has moved higher, and the shadows have shrunk to nothing. Your stomach growls, reminding you that breakfast was hours ago, that you're still here, still breathing, still hungry. You think briefly of rest, but there's no such word here. There's only the next seedling waiting to be pressed into the earth. The day stretches open, wide, and merciless. The rice fields shimmer, the oxen grunt, and the air thickens until it hums like a dream you can't wake from. Somewhere in the distance, a bell rings faintly. From where? You don't know. Maybe a temple, maybe a wind chime. But it sounds peaceful, and for a moment, that's enough. By the time the sun climbs to its full height, the mist is gone. The valley has become a bowl of heat and reflected light, the water in the paddies now like liquid glass. You squint against the glare and wipe your forehead with the back of your sleeve, leaving a streak of mud across your temple. Your body feels heavier than the yoke across your shoulders. Each breath tastes like steam and soil. The rice fields stretch endlessly before you, a patchwork of shallow water divided by narrow embankments that crumble beneath your toes. Each paddy mirrors the same story: someone like you, bent low, moving slowly, hands buried in the living earth. From far away, it must look beautiful. From inside it, it's just endless, aching work. You take another step forward, feel the mud close over your ankles, then your calves. It's thick, cool, and strangely soothing, though leeches cling to your skin when you stand still too long. You flick one off with a grimace. That's your morning company, leeches and frogs. The frogs croak like small, cranky monks. The leeches say nothing. A rhythmic creak draws your gaze. Your neighbor, oldly again, guiding his ox across the shallow water. The wooden plow drags lines through the mud like writing no one will ever read. The ox snorts, eyes half-lidded, patient as the moon. You wave. He grins faintly, then gestures toward the horizon where thunderclouds are already gathering. The rainy season is coming early this year. You both know what that means. More water than you can control, less rice than you can spare. Still, you keep working. Everyone does. In this world, labor isn't something you choose, it's the air you breathe. You adjust your stance, sink lower, and begin transplanting seedlings again. The green shoots slide through your fingers, fragile yet stubborn. You press them into the mud with a motion as old as civilization itself. Every plant is a promise, of hunger, of hope, of tomorrow. You hum softly as you work, an old tune your grandmother used to sing when storms rolled over the valley. The words have faded in your memory, but the melody lingers, comforting as warm rice wine. Hours stretch thin. The sky grows white and merciless. You pause only long enough to take a sip from your gourd flask, lukewarm water flavored faintly with clay. It doesn't cool you, but it tricks your throat into believing. A dragonfly lands on your sleeve. It stays there, its translucent wings trembling. You hold still. There's something sacred about small creatures here. They seem to know the land's secrets. The elders say dragonflies carry the souls of ancestors who visit to watch the harvest. You don't know if that's true, but for a moment, you imagine your father resting there on your arm, watching, approving, saying nothing. Historians still argue whether peasants in Han China saw themselves as part of a spiritual cycle or merely as survivalists. But you, standing knee-deep in the field, don't have the luxury of philosophy. The mud doesn't care about belief. It only asks for your body. A shadow passes overhead, a heron gliding low. You watch its reflection ripple through the flooded paddy, fractured by your footprints. The sight brings a strange calm. You think, if I were that bird, I'd fly to the mountains and never look back. But even as you think it, you know you wouldn't. You belong here, bound by duty and soil. You look up at the ridgeline beyond the valley. You can just make out the faint outline of the road that leads toward the county town. Sometimes merchants pass along it, their carts loaded with silk and salt, shouting news of faraway wars. Those stories sound like fables. The empire might stretch for 1,000 li, but for you, it's only as wide as the next furrow. Your wife calls from the embankment, holding a woven basket. You wade to her, grateful for the excuse to stand straight for once. Your spine cracks like old wood as you emerge from the water, dripping mud from every fold of your clothing. She laughs softly. It's a sound that cuts through the heavy air like a breeze. You sit together beneath the thin shade of a willow, the only tree tall enough to cast a shadow worth sharing. The food is simple: pickled greens, a cold millet cake, and a tiny bowl of fermented bean paste. You eat in silence, the way married people often do, not out of boredom but because everything that needs saying has already been said in glances and gestures. Between bites, she mentions that a traveling monk passed through the village yesterday, preaching about karma and simplicity. He said suffering purifies the soul. You snort at that. You've been pure enough for 10 lifetimes. She hides her smile behind her hand. You finish eating and lie back for a moment, staring up through the leaves. The sky is blinding, but the breeze off the river feels cool against your damp skin. You close your eyes. For a moment, sleep teases you. Then, crack, a shout from the field. Someone's ox has broken its yoke. The wooden beam splits, scattering the seedlings. The farmer curses loudly. You sit up again, fatigue replaced by a dull resignation. Rest never lasts long. The afternoon wears on, slow and bright. The clouds above begin to thicken. The smell of rain creeps in, metallic and sweet. You move faster now, trying to finish before the downpour. Mud clings to your legs like a second skin. Each movement feels heavier than the last. When the rain finally comes, it's sudden, a wall of silver needles. You don't run. No one does. The sky simply opens and you keep planting because what else is there? The water runs down your face, your neck, your arms. The paddies fill higher. The world becomes sound and motion. A curious fringe detail. In some dynasties, farmers would sing work songs during rain to appease the thunder gods, believing their rhythm kept lightning away. You find yourself humming again, low and steady. Maybe it's habit, maybe superstition, maybe both. By the time the storm passes, everything is soaked, gleaming. The sky cracks open into evening hues, purple, gold, faint rose. Steam rises from the fields like ghosts leaving the earth. You straighten up one last time. Your body protests, but your heart feels oddly calm. You've survived another day of labor, another day of sun and mud and water. And though nothing feels accomplished, the field now glows with neat rows of green, your quiet, fragile victory. The frogs start singing again. The first fireflies appear. You take one last look at the paddies, then turn back toward the village, your legs trembling but steady. Tomorrow, the work will begin again. But for now, you walk toward home, following the path where the twilight pools in silver puddles. The light fades, soft and golden, as you trudge home from the fields. The village looks almost beautiful now, its crooked roofs glowing in the sunset, smoke rising lazily from the chimneys, the faint laughter of children chasing shadows. It's a brief, deceptive peace, one that comes only when the day's exhaustion is so complete that even the world's cruelties feel far away. You lift your yoke off your shoulders, muscles groaning in protest. The buckets still carry a thin film of muddy water that sloshes with each step. Your bare feet make soft sucking sounds in the path. The smell of wet earth clings to you. It will never really leave. You pass by the shrine again, the little red box at the crossroads, its incense long burned out. Someone has placed a fresh orange there. You bow slightly as you pass. Even the smallest act of reverence feels worth doing, if only because the world is too vast to understand without small gestures. As you near your hut, you spot two men in fine robes standing beside an ox cart. You freeze for a moment. Their clothes are too clean, their sandals too polished. You recognize them instantly, local officials, the emperor's collectors, though their allegiance is more to their stomachs than to the throne. The overseer's whip dangles from the wrist of one man. He's not using it yet, just letting it hang there, like a promise. His assistant holds a scroll and a brush, checking off names as villagers gather nervously. You can hear the murmurs. They came early this year. Your heart sinks. You were hoping for one more week, just one, before this ritual humiliation. You walk over quietly, placing your buckets down by your door. A crowd forms. The air thickens with tension. The overseer speaks loudly, his tone practiced and falsely cheerful. The Son of Heaven thanks his loyal people, he says, and reminds you that prosperity depends on obedience. You've heard it before. Everyone has. His words are less about the emperor and more about the moment his hand will point at you. He goes down the list, each name followed by the expected offering: sacks of grain, jars of pickled fish, bundles of reeds. For those who have little, he adds labor duty, a euphemism for free work on the county's roads or levees. When your name is called, you bow low and step forward. He glances at you, smirking slightly. The harvest looks good this year, he says, as if the sweat dripping from your face is evidence of luxury. You hand over your grain, carefully measured, painfully saved. His assistant opens the sack, dips his hand in, and removes a handful of rice. He examines it between his fingers, then tosses a bit into the dirt. Not pure enough, he says. Too much husk. You clench your jaw. You know better than to argue. The overseer gestures lazily toward the whip. He doesn't use it, he doesn't need to. The sound of its leather brushing his hand is enough. You'll bring another sack next week, he says, already turning to the next villager. You bow again, deeper this time, then back away. The air around you feels heavier than the sack you just lost. Historians still argue whether the ancient Chinese tax system crushed its peasants deliberately or simply ignored them into misery. Either way, standing there, you feel its weight. A machine so vast it doesn't need cruelty. It runs on indifference. The collectors eventually climb back onto their cart, their robes still spotless. their bellies still full. They leave in a cloud of dust that settles on your empty hands. The villagers disperse silently, faces expressionless, as if carved from the same mud they live in. You go inside. The fire in your hearth is low. Your wife looks at you and understands immediately. She doesn't ask, she simply adds another handful of twigs and stirs the pot. The soup smells faintly of ginger and salt. You sit in silence for a while. The only sound is the wooden spoon tapping the pot's rim. Then, softly, she says, "We'll manage." You nod, even though neither of you truly believes it. Outside, the night deepens. The crickets begin their endless chorus. You step out for air, standing by the doorway, watching the fireflies drift like sparks of wandering spirits. The moon rises pale and distant, reflected in the waterlogged paddies beyond the village. You think of the overseer's smile, the whip dangling idly in his hand, and wonder if he ever feels shame. Probably not. Power erases such things. A fringe tidbit. In some regions, collectors demanded shadow taxes, invented debts that existed only on paper, forcing families to sell their daughters into servitude just to erase names from the register. You've seen it happen. No one speaks of it aloud, but silence here carries more truth than any confession. You rub your palms together, the calluses catching against one another like sandpaper. Tomorrow, you'll return to the fields. You always do. There's no rebellion in your heart, just the quiet endurance of one who has already accepted that the world above will never bend. You look at your hands in the moonlight, cracked, swollen, strong. These are the emperor's hands, though he will never know it. The rice that feeds his table, the silk that robes his body, all begin here, in the mud. You wonder, briefly, if he dreams of you. Probably not. The night cools. Somewhere a dog barks and a baby starts crying. You go back inside, lay down beside your wife, and let the warmth of the fire seep into your bones. Sleep comes slowly, like fog returning to the valley. You think of tomorrow's dawn, the rooster, the cold air, and the fields that wait without mercy. For now, though, you drift, one small soul under an endless, indifferent sky. You wake before dawn again, though the night felt short and restless. Your joints protest as you swing your legs off the mat, your feet sinking slightly into the cold, packed earth of the hut. The fire has burned down to embers. You stoke it with leftover twigs, small and dry, coaxing a fragile glow that spreads warmth across the room. Your wife shifts beside you, murmuring something half asleep. You nod, no words are needed. Life is in these small gestures, mutual understanding, shared burdens, silent endurance. Outside, the village is quiet but alive. Smoke rises thin from chimneys, and the air is damp with condensation. Somewhere, a rooster crows too early, announcing the day that doesn't care whether you're ready or not. You trudge along the narrow path to the communal well, carrying your yoke, the buckets creaking in protest. Each step presses your bare feet into mud, already soft from last night's drizzle. The first light glimmers over the rice paddies. Water reflects a pale pink sky, stretching endlessly, mirroring the distant mountains. Your neighbor is already at work, the old ox plodding through the water with slow, methodical patience. You bow slightly in greeting. A grunt is your reply. Conversation is a luxury, rhythm is survival. Life is built around duty, around filial piety, the ancient code that binds you to your elders, to your parents, to the ancestors whose small clay figures line the shelves of every hut. You bow, whispering a silent prayer for guidance and protection. Historians still debate whether filial piety was primarily spiritual or enforced as social control, but you don't have time to ponder such questions. Your hands are already deep in the wet mud, pressing seedlings in neat rows. The sun rises quickly now, heating the water and mud, reflecting light into your eyes. Sweat forms rivulets down your back, mixing with dirt. The air is thick with the sound of insects and birds. Frogs croak insistently, and somewhere, a heron glides silently above the paddies. The world is alive in subtle, relentless ways, indifferent to human toil. A quirky tradition persists among some villages. They leave small offerings of rice cakes on the edge of the fields, believing spirits will protect their crops. You glance at a tiny pile someone left earlier and smile faintly, imagining the invisible guardians watching over your mud-caked hands. Your wife approaches with the midday meal wrapped in lotus leaves. The food is simple, a small portion of rice, pickled vegetables, and a slice of salted tofu. You sit on the embankment, cross-legged, and eat with your hands. Each bite is a quiet meditation on scarcity and sustenance. You savor it, slow enough to notice the earthy tang, the texture of the leaves, the way the wind ruffles the stalks around you. After eating, she returns to her chores, tending small plots of vegetables near the hut, checking water for the pigs, and repairing worn cloth. You watch her briefly, noting how life molds each person into a series of small, enduring motions, hands that carry water, scrub, sew, cook, sweep, repeat. By afternoon, the sun has climbed high, scorching, relentless. You bend again into the fields, the mud and water clinging to your body, the seedlings forming neat green lines beneath your fingers. The rhythm is hypnotic. You lose track of time. Your back aches, your legs feel like lead. But still you press on. Rumors from the capital sometimes reach the village. Eunuchs plotting, minor rebellions, harvest taxes changing. Travelers speak in whispers, careful not to attract attention. You hear it all and shrug. The distance between your world and theirs is vast. The capital might as well be another planet. Still, the stories drift in, carried by wind and gossip, reminding you that the empire exists even if it never touches your fingers. By evening, your body feels hollow with exhaustion. You return slowly to the hut, shoulders bent, hands raw. The sun has fallen behind the mountains, leaving a gentle violet wash across the valley. You pass the small shrine once more, bowing, offering a silent thanks that your family survived another day. The village is quieting down. Smoke rises from chimneys, the pigs settle into their pens, and the children are corralled inside. You and your wife sit near the fire. The embers glow faintly, offering warmth and comfort, a small counterpoint to the vast, indifferent world. You feel it. Duty, fatigue, love, survival, all mingled together. And though you bend under the weight of centuries-old expectations, under the empire's distant gaze, you feel alive, connected to the earth, to each other, to the slow, unbroken cycle of labor and life. Evening arrives, but the day's work doesn't fully end. In fact, it shifts into another rhythm, slower, quieter, yet just as vital. The village begins to prepare for its small festivals and seasonal observances. Lanterns are hung along narrow paths, their paper flickering in the wind, glowing like tiny stars trapped on earth. The children run between houses, carrying miniature torches, giggling and screaming as if chasing the sun itself. You watch from the edge of your hut, your body weary but your mind attuned to the soft, almost hypnotic dance of flame and shadow. Tonight, there's a festival to honor the ancestors, and the air smells of incense, rice cakes, and the occasional hint of wood smoke from cooking fires. You can hear distant gongs and the occasional clatter of bamboo percussion instruments. Every sound seems exaggerated in the calm of twilight, echoing across the paddy fields that now shimmer under the moon's first faint light. The villagers gather in small groups, bringing offerings, bowls of rice, slices of dried fruit, a candle or two. Some of the older women hum ancient tunes, low and throaty, as they prepare small altars. You join in, bowing your head slightly, acknowledging the spirits you can't see but feel pressing against the edges of life. The act is almost mechanical, yet profoundly soothing, a reminder that even in hardship, ritual can lend shape to existence. A fringe custom persists in these valleys. The villagers leave small paper boats on the river, floating them downstream with tiny coins or bits of food tucked inside. The belief is that river spirits carry these gifts to ancestors who roamed the waters. You smile faintly, remembering last year when a child's boat tipped over, spilling offerings into the mud. The adults laughed quietly, correcting the child with gentle hands, not out of anger but habit, a lesson in patience and faith. Historians still argue whether these rituals were primarily spiritual or a method to maintain social cohesion among peasants. From your perspective, it hardly matters. The gestures comfort you, marking the end of workday exhaustion and the start of communal connection. As the night grows darker, firecrackers occasionally pop in the distance. Their sharp, sudden sounds startle some of the livestock, sending a pig squealing across a pen. The smoke carries across the water, diffusing moonlight, creating a dreamy haze over the paddies. You step lightly, careful not to disturb the delicate balance of offerings and shadows. The village storyteller has begun to circle the small communal fire, voice soft and deliberate. He recounts tales of river dragons, mischievous spirits that wander the hills at night, sometimes blessing the crops, sometimes punishing negligence. You lean back slightly, listening, letting the monotone rise and fall lull your body into a gentle relaxation. Even the children, now settled near their parents, are captivated by the ebb and flow of narrative, their eyes half closed. You reflect quietly on your own small life within these rhythms. Every planting season, every harvest, every tax delivery, every festival, all layers of existence stacked upon one another, forming the fragile scaffolding of survival. Your hands, raw and calloused, remember every repetitive motion. Your back remembers the stoop and strain. Your mind remembers the tiny joys between hardships, a laugh, a warm meal, a fleeting compliment from an elder. By the time the festival quiets, lanterns have burned low, incense smoke curls lazily into the night sky, and the river carries your small paper boat silently downstream. You step back toward your hut, feeling the weight of the day and the relief of communal rites. Your feet are caked in mud, your clothes still damp, yet your spirit carries the quiet satisfaction of having participated in something larger than yourself, even if just for a single evening. As you prepare for bed, the distant sounds of festival chatter fade. A gentle breeze sweeps over the paddies, rustling leaves and carrying the scent of wet earth. You breathe deeply, letting your body sink into the familiar discomfort of your mat, knowing the rhythm will repeat again tomorrow, yet finding a certain comfort in the constancy of life, however harsh or humble it may be. Morning returns, as it always does, and with it, the sharp chill that creeps through your hut before the sun has fully risen. Your limbs are stiff, your back still sore from yesterday's labor, yet the day offers no reprieve. You swing your legs off the mat, feet meeting the familiar cold earth, and stretch with a groan that seems to echo across the hut's walls. The fire has dwindled to glowing embers, and you coax it back to life with twigs that snap under your fingers. Outside, the village is slowly awakening. Smoke spirals from chimneys like lazy snakes, carrying the faint scent of yesterday's cooking fires. Somewhere, a rooster crows insistently, as if daring the sun itself to rise. You pull on your tunic, damp with sweat and mud from the previous day, and step out. The air is sharp, carrying the scent of wet earth, dung, and the faintly sweet aroma of early blossoms clinging to the edges of the rice paddies. Today, your work is different. You must repair embankments along the rice fields. The previous rainstorm left them weakened, and the water threatens to breach their fragile walls. You grab a bundle of reeds and begin weaving them into the mud, pressing with fingers already raw from planting and harvesting. Every motion is deliberate, almost meditative, yet exhausting. You glance at the paddies, watching water glint in the sunlight. Your reflection dances across the surface, distorted by ripples. You look more tired than you feel alive, but there's a rhythm here that soothes. Mud, water, plant, earth. The work is repetitive, but it teaches patience, endurance, and humility. Nearby, a group of women carry baskets of clay and straw, reinforcing sections of the embankments. Their movements are synchronized, unspoken communication passing between them in glances and gestures. You exchange nods, a quiet acknowledgement of shared struggle. A curious fringe detail. Some villages believed that certain stones placed at the base of embankments held protective spirits. You push one carefully into the mud, wondering if superstition or practicality governs its presence. Perhaps both. Historians still debate whether these practices were universal or localized, yet the physical reality remains. Weak embankments meant lost crops and hunger. Survival here is never abstract. It's tactile, immediate. By midday, the sun scorches the valley. Sweat drips from your hair into the mud, clinging to your skin. You pause briefly to drink water, cooling your throat, feeling the grit between your teeth. Your wife appears at the edge of the field, carrying a small meal wrapped in lotus leaves. She smiles faintly, hands flower-streaked and hair tied high. You eat quickly, mindful of the rising heat and the water slowly eroding the embankments. The food is humble: millet porridge, a few pickled vegetables, and a small piece of salted fish. Each bite is both nourishment and fleeting comfort. The world outside the village is vast, indifferent, and you measure time not by hours but by hunger, thirst, and the work left undone. After the brief respite, you return to the field. The sun climbs higher, shadows shorten it. The work is unending, yet there's a strange satisfaction in repairing what will protect your village. Your hands move automatically, weaving reeds and mud with the knowledge that these actions, simple though they may seem, are acts of survival, stewardship, and care. You notice a group of children playing near the edge of the fields. They imitate your motions with sticks and mud, pretending to plant rice and mend embankments. A small smile tugs at your lips. Even in hardship, life imitates persistence. Their laughter is a reminder that joy exists in fragments, between labor and survival, fleeting yet vital. As afternoon approaches, the embankments are partially restored. The sweat on your skin has dried, leaving a crust of mud that cracks with every movement. You straighten, surveying your work. It's not perfect, but it will hold. For now, that is enough. Evening creeps in slowly, promising the small solace of rest, yet you know tomorrow brings the same demands. And still, amidst exhaustion and mud, there's a quiet dignity in the rhythm of labor, the interwoven lives of family, neighbors, and the land itself. Night settles over the village like a soft blanket, thick and quiet. The sky deepens into indigo, the first stars blinking weakly through the faint haze of smoke rising from chimneys. You step outside your hut after washing the day's sweat and mud from your hands, noticing how the world softens under darkness. Shadows stretch across the paddies, the water now black except for fleeting reflections of lanterns from distant homes. You hear the low murmur of villagers gathering for evening chores, feeding pigs, mending nets, or stirring the last embers of their fires. Your wife stands by the doorway, sweeping fine dust and stray grains from the dirt floor. She looks up, and her eyes meet yours. No words are spoken, none are needed. Survival here is communicated through gestures, glances, and shared understanding. Tonight, the air carries the scent of earth, rice, and damp straw. Somewhere, a child cries briefly, then laughs when another throws a small stone into a puddle. You smile faintly, remembering how such tiny moments of levity often punctuate days filled with toil. You sit near the fire, resting briefly, letting the warmth seep into your chilled muscles. Historians still debate whether peasants in Han-era villages ever felt a sense of leisure or if all moments were dominated by work. From your perspective, leisure is a thin veil over necessity, moments of pause before the body demands motion again. A fringe detail: some villages believed that the moon controlled the spirits in the rice paddies. If it rose full and bright, they whispered, the harvest would be protected. You glance up at the moon now, low and glowing, feeling a subtle reassurance as if the silver disk watches over your daily struggles. The smell of cooking fires grows stronger. Dinner tonight is simple: a small bowl of millet, a handful of pickled vegetables, and a scrap of dried tofu. You eat slowly, savoring each mouthful, letting the heat fill your stomach and the fire warmth fill your body. Even in scarcity, the act of eating together brings comfort. As you rest, you notice how each sound resonates: frogs croaking in the paddies, the distant croak of a heron, a dog barking in the hills. Even these ordinary noises carry weight, giving life to a world that otherwise seems indifferent. Later, you and your wife walk along the narrow embankments between paddies. The water glimmers faintly under the moon, reflecting your tired faces. You speak softly, sharing the day's small stories: the embankment you repaired, the ox that refused to cooperate, the neighbor's child who nearly fell into the mud. Each anecdote is a quiet celebration, a mark of endurance. The night air grows cooler. You return home, checking that the fire is still alive and that the animals are settled. You feel the rhythm of your life settle around you, each task completed like a heartbeat in the body of the village. Finally, you lie down on your mat, muscles sore but mind calm. Outside, the wind whispers through reeds, carrying distant croaks and laughter. You feel the slow pull of sleep, the body's reward for the day's relentless rhythm. Tomorrow will bring the same work, the same challenges, the same mud, but for tonight, you rest, tucked under the weight of a world you've helped shape in small, tireless ways. The next morning begins before the sun has fully crested the mountains. You awaken to a faint chill in the hut, the smell of damp straw mixing with smoke from the embers of yesterday's fire. You swing your legs off the mat, feet pressing into the cool, hard-packed earth. The day stretches ahead, vast and unrelenting, but you move with practiced rhythm, stoking the fire, brewing a weak tea from dried leaves, and preparing a small portion of millet for breakfast. Outside, the village stirs slowly. Smoke spirals from each chimney, thin and delicate in the crisp morning air. Children run along narrow paths, laughing and kicking dust, while older villagers already head toward the fields. You shoulder your yoke, the buckets heavy with water, and trudge along the muddy path to the rice paddies. The earth is soft beneath your feet, water pooling in small rivulets, reflecting the pale pinks and golds of dawn. Today, the work focuses on weeding the rice paddies. Every plant must be tended carefully. Weeds left unchecked will rob the young shoots of vital nutrients. You bend low, hands submerged in the cool, wet mud, uprooting unwanted growth. The repetitive motion is exhausting, yet almost meditative. There's a rhythm here, a slow, gentle pulse that matches the rising sun and your own heartbeat. A quirky detail survives in certain regions. Some peasants tied small charms to their tools, believing they would ward off pests or ensure a bountiful harvest. You glance at the small carved figurine hanging from your hoe handle, a relic of your mother's faith. Whether superstition or tradition, it lends a sense of companionship to the otherwise solitary work. Historians still debate how much autonomy peasants actually had in managing their fields versus following strict mandates from local authorities. You barely notice the argument. Your focus remains on keeping your hands steady, your back straight, and your seedlings alive. Survival is not theoretical. It's tactile, immediate, and relentless. By mid-morning, sweat drips down your spine, mixing with the mud and water that clings stubbornly to your skin. You pause to take a sip from your gourd flask, the water lukewarm and gritty. Even this simple refreshment feels like a luxury. Your wife arrives carrying a small meal wrapped in lotus leaves, a portion of millet porridge, some pickled vegetables, and a thin slice of salted fish. You eat quickly, the flavors muted by the fatigue and grit that cling to your tongue. The afternoon brings the inevitable sun and heat, pressing down on your back and shoulders as you continue your work. You notice the oxen moving slowly, their bellies brushing against the muddy water, eyes half-lidded. You recall the old saying, "He who tends the earth respects the heavens." It feels true in these long, sunlit hours, even if the heavens themselves seem indifferent. A small distraction comes in the form of a wandering monk passing by the edge of the fields. His robes are faded, and he carries no staff, just a small bundle of scrolls. He murmurs prayers as he walks, and villagers bow respectfully. You offer a silent nod, wondering if the words hold real power or merely serve to remind humans of their fragility. As evening approaches, the work slows, shadows stretching across the paddies. Your muscles ache, your hands are raw, yet the green shoots gleam in neat rows, evidence of another day survived. You trudge home slowly, mindful of the mud clinging to your legs and the waterlogged paths beneath your feet. Night falls, carrying with it the sense of cooking fires, wet earth, and smoke. The village quiets, children corralled indoors, animals settled. You sit beside the fire with your wife, sharing a small meal in silence. The day's labor has left its mark, and yet there is a quiet satisfaction in the continuity, in the knowledge that each planted seed is a testament to your persistence. Dawn arrives again, pale and hesitant, as if reluctant to witness the daily ritual of toil. You awake to the faint chill that creeps through the cracks in your hut's walls. Your body protests as you swing your legs off the mat, toes pressing into the cold earth. The embers of last night's fire have died, leaving only the lingering scent of smoke and ash. You bend to rekindle it, fingers raw from repeated contact with heat and friction, and let a weak flame grow before preparing a small bowl of millet gruel for breakfast. The village outside is stirring. Smoke spirals lazily from chimneys, mingling with the scent of wet earth and the faint tang of river water. Children run barefoot along the paths, chasing one another, their laughter fleeting and fragile against the backdrop of constant labor. Older villagers head toward the rice paddies with buckets, plows, and hoes, all moving with the practiced rhythm of survival. Today, your task is to maintain the irrigation channels. Water is life here, and any misstep, blocked channels, broken levees, can ruin the harvest. You lift a small bamboo pole and begin prodding the channels, redirecting water where it pools too heavily and freeing sections where silt has collected. The mud clings stubbornly to your hands and feet, forming a second skin that marks every hour of labor. A fringe tradition persists in some areas. Small offerings of rice or coins were placed at the head of irrigation channels to ensure water flowed evenly, a nod to unseen spirits or perhaps an ancient superstition that survives from forgotten dynasties. You glance at a tiny pile someone has left along the path, feeling a subtle reassurance that even small gestures can hold meaning in this arduous life. Historians still debate whether peasants had significant agency in water management or merely followed orders from local administrators. From your perspective, such discussions are abstract. Water is immediate, it demands attention, and mistakes are punished not by debate, but by lost crops. By midday, the sun climbs high and relentless. Sweat drips down your spine, mixing with the mud that clings to your skin. You pause to drink from your gourd flask. The water is lukewarm, gritty, but it refreshes enough to continue. Your wife arrives, carrying a small meal wrapped in lotus leaves, a modest portion of millet, some pickled greens, and a thin slice of dried fish. You eat quickly, savoring the brief comfort and warmth of shared sustenance before returning to the channels. The afternoon sun intensifies, pressing down through the haze. The oxen plod through the waterlogged fields, slow and deliberate, their eyes half closed against the glare. You bend low, adjusting channels, pressing mud around embankments, your movements repetitive, hypnotic. The rhythm is exhausting, yet strangely calming. You realize, fleetingly, that this cycle, the planting, tending, and protection of the rice, is the very pulse of life here. Occasionally, travelers pass by the village, carrying news of distant towns or whispers of imperial decrees. Their words are like faint echoes, reminders of a vast world beyond your paddies. You glance at them, nod silently, but your focus returns immediately to the earth beneath your hands. The empire is vast, but your life is measured in the furrows you tend, the water you channel, the seedlings you press into the mud. As the sun dips toward the horizon, the channels are restored, water flowing smoothly to nourish the young rice shoots. Your back aches, hands blistered and stiff, yet a quiet satisfaction accompanies the exhaustion. You trudge home slowly, every step sticky with mud, every breath a reminder of relentless labor. Night falls, bringing with it the familiar chorus of crickets, frogs, and distant dogs. You settle near the hearth with your wife, sharing a small, simple meal. The day is done, yet you know tomorrow will demand the same endurance. For now, though, there is warmth, quiet, and the unspoken acknowledgement that you have survived another day in a world that is indifferent, vast, and endlessly demanding. The dawn is quiet, the village still wrapped in the soft blue haze of early morning. You awaken slowly, your body heavy from the previous day's work, each muscle sore but functional. The straw mat beneath you is thin, uncomfortable, but familiar. You swing your legs off the mat, feet pressing into the cool, uneven floor, and stretch with a long, deliberate groan. Outside, smoke rises from chimneys, curling like restless spirits, carrying the faint scent of last night's cooking fires into the crisp morning air. Today, your task is to tend to the granary and ensure the harvested rice is stored safely. The authorities visit periodically, inspecting stocks and sometimes levying additional taxes. Your hands are already blistered from daily labor, yet the weight of responsibility is heavier in this task. You lift the heavy sacks, stacking them carefully on raised platforms to avoid moisture, adjusting them so that air circulates freely. A single misstep could ruin months of effort. A fringe custom persists in some villages. Small charms or talismans are tucked between the rice sacks to ward off theft or pests. You glance at a small carved figure, its features worn by time, and feel a flicker of comfort. Perhaps superstition, perhaps inherited wisdom, but it offers a subtle reassurance. Historians still debate the exact methods and efficiency of grain storage in ancient Chinese villages, but the practical reality is unmistakable. Moisture and pests were constant threats. Survival required vigilance, patience, and a relentless attention to detail. Midday sun bears down on the village, reflecting off mud-caked surfaces and the water of the paddies. Sweat trickles down your spine, blending with the dust and residue of labor. You pause briefly to drink from your gourd, lukewarm and gritty, yet a small comfort in the long, demanding day. Your wife brings a small meal wrapped in lotus leaves, millet porridge, pickled vegetables, and a thin slice of dried fish. Eating together, you savor the brief warmth and solace that such simple moments provide. Afternoon tasks stretch into the long shadows. You inspect storage platforms, checking for leaks, pests, or signs of dampness. Each adjustment is meticulous, the repetition meditative, even as exhaustion tugs at your limbs. The village seems to breathe around you. Children play along embankments, women repair clothing or tend small plots, and oxen plod steadily through waterlogged fields. The rhythm of life is relentless, yet strangely comforting in its predictability. A traveler passes by, speaking in hushed tones of taxes, decrees, and distant uprisings. The words float past you, distant and irrelevant. Your attention returns immediately to the rice, the mud, the paddies, tangible, pressing matters that define existence here. As evening falls, the granary stands organized, secure, a testament to your labor and persistence. Your hands ache, back throbs, but there is a quiet satisfaction in knowing that the most essential task of survival has been accomplished. The village begins to settle. Fires crackle, children are corralled indoors, animals rest. You sit by the hearth with your wife, the smoke curling upward, carrying warmth and a faint aroma of millet. Outside, the moon rises over the paddies, casting silvery reflections across the water. You feel the slow pull of exhaustion, the gentle reward for enduring another day, as sleep beckons softly, wrapping the village in quiet, inevitable darkness. Morning arrives once more, gentle yet insistent, brushing the village with pale light that seeps through the thin walls of your hut. You awaken slowly, the ache in your muscles a constant reminder of yesterday's labor, yet there is no reprieve. You swing your legs off the mat, feet sinking slightly into the cool, packed earth, and stretch deliberately, feeling each joint protest. The embers of last night's fire are cold. You coax a new flame with small twigs, the fire flaring weakly before settling into a steady glow. Today, you are tasked with tending the fish ponds, a crucial part of the village's sustenance. Nets need repairing, ponds need clearing, and the delicate balance of aquatic life must be maintained. You trudge toward the ponds, carrying a basket filled with tools and dried bait. Water splashes against your ankles as you wade carefully, trying not to disturb the fish more than necessary. A quirky local tradition lingers. Before placing nets, some villagers murmur short prayers or toss a small grain of rice into the water, believing the spirits will protect the fish from disease and theft. You mimic the motion automatically, half in habit, half in respect. Whether superstition or inherited wisdom, it offers a subtle reassurance. Historians still debate the scale and efficiency of aquaculture in these villages. Some argue it was merely supplementary. Others claim it was essential to survival, providing a protein source when crops failed. You feel neither theory nor debate. You feel mud under your nails, the cool water against your legs, and the weight of your responsibility. By midday, the sun burns high, glinting off the pond water. Sweat drips into your eyes, blending with the grime on your skin. Your wife arrives with a simple meal, millet porridge, pickled greens, and a sliver of salted fish. You eat quickly, savoring warmth and nourishment, and return to repairing nets and tending the pond's edges. The afternoon stretches long and silent, punctuated only by the occasional splash of fish or the caw of a distant bird. Your hands ache, back stiffens, Yet there is a rhythm in the repetitive motions, a quiet meditative focus that keeps the mind occupied even as the body tires. Occasionally, a villager passes by, exchanging brief nods or murmured greetings. The pace is slow, deliberate, governed by the sun and water rather than clocks. Life is measured in seasons, sunlight, and harvests, not hours. As evening falls, the ponds are tended, nets mended, and fish safe for the night. You trudge back home, mud clinging stubbornly to your legs, each step a reminder of persistent labor. Lanterns are lit along narrow paths, casting a soft glow on the water and embankments. You sit near the hearth with your wife, the embers warm against your sore back. Outside, the night air carries the faint rustle of reeds, the distant croak of frogs, and the whisper of wind across water. Your body relaxes, your mind begins to slow, and sleep approaches like a gentle tide, wrapping the village in quiet assurance. The dawn is soft, almost hesitant, as it spills over the mountains, washing the village in pale gold and rose hues. You awaken slowly, your body stiff from yesterday's labor, yet you rise out of necessity, dragging yourself from the thin straw mat. The cold earth presses against your feet as you stand, and the familiar scent of damp straw and lingering smoke greets you. You stoke the remnants of last night's embers, coaxing a fragile flame back to life, and prepare a small breakfast of millet porridge and pickled vegetables. Today, your task is to repair the thatched roofs and mud walls of several huts in the village, a responsibility that falls to anyone physically capable. You shoulder bundles of straw and climb the slippery, uneven slopes of the roofs, carefully placing each stalk in precise layers. The work is physically demanding, balancing on fragile supports while maintaining enough tension to keep the thatch tight. Every misstep risks injury, or worse, damage that leaves a family exposed to rain and wind. A curious fringe practice persists among some villages. Small paper charms are tucked beneath the thatch to ward off evil spirits or prevent the rain from leaking through. You tuck one carefully into place, half out of habit, half out of respect. Perhaps superstition, perhaps cultural memory, yet it lends a small comfort. Historians still debate how standardized construction techniques were across rural China, and whether such measures were influenced more by superstition or practical knowledge. From your perspective, these details are irrelevant. What matters is that the roof holds and the walls stand firm. By midday, sweat drips from your hair into your eyes, mixing with dust and mud. Your hands are raw, your back aches, yet the repetition has a meditative rhythm, each movement precise and deliberate. Your wife brings a simple meal wrapped in lotus leaves, millet, pickled vegetables, and a small slice of salted fish. You eat slowly, savoring warmth and nourishment, brief moments of respite before returning to labor. Afternoon's sun beats down relentlessly. You adjust the mud walls, patching cracks, pressing and smoothing until they are stable again. The thatch overhead sways slightly in the wind, a constant reminder of impermanence. Children play nearby, mimicking your motions with sticks and straw, their laughter brief yet striking against the quiet of serious work. Occasionally, travelers or officials pass through, speaking in whispers of taxes, mandates, or distant wars. The words drift past like clouds, unnoticed and largely irrelevant to your immediate task. The empire is vast, but your life is measured in the strength of your arms, the steadiness of your hands, and the resilience of your family's home. By evening, the roofs are secure, the mud walls repaired. The village breathes a little easier. You return home slowly, every step reminding you of fatigue, persistence, and the quiet satisfaction of labor completed. Lanterns are lit, casting gentle light across the village paths, and the air hums with insects and distant frogs. Sitting near the hearth with your wife, you feel a sense of calm. Outside, the moon rises over the fields, reflecting silver across the paddies. You breathe deeply, letting your body relax, and feel sleep tug gently at your consciousness, a soft, inevitable conclusion to another long, demanding day. The morning light is pale and tender, spilling over the mountains and slipping quietly into the village. You awaken slowly, your body heavy with fatigue, yet necessity compels you to rise. The straw mat beneath you offers little comfort, but familiarity softens the edges of discomfort. You swing your legs off the mat, feet pressing into the cool, uneven earth, and stretch deliberately, feeling the stiffness that marks a life of repeated labor. Outside, smoke curls lazily from chimneys, carrying the faint scent of yesterday's cooking fires. Today, your work involves tending the small orchard near the edge of the village. Trees planted years ago bear fruit cautiously, and each branch requires attention, pruning dead limbs, encouraging healthy growth, and ensuring that water and nutrients reach every root. You move deliberately, hands rough and calloused, fingers tracing the delicate lines of new buds, coaxing life from the soil. A quirky local custom persists. Villagers sometimes whisper small wishes into the bark of trees, believing that spirits hear these murmurs and bless the harvest. You pause at a small plum tree, pressing your hand against the trunk and murmuring a silent hope for your family's health. Perhaps superstition, perhaps a habit inherited over generations, yet it brings a subtle sense of connection to something larger. Historians still debate the extent to which orchard cultivation contributed to village survival versus its role in ritual and social cohesion. From your perspective, the distinction is unimportant. The fruit must grow, your family's nourishment depends on it. By midday, the sun is hot, pressing down through the leaves, and sweat drips down your back, mixing with the dust and earth on your skin. Your wife arrives with a small meal wrapped in lotus leaves, a modest portion of millet, pickled vegetables, and a slice of salted fish. You eat together, savoring both food and the brief pause it allows from constant labor. Afternoon stretches long and relentless. You prune, dig, and water, repeating motions until they become almost meditative. Birds flit among branches, insects hum softly, and the orchard seems to pulse with life despite the fatigue weighing on your body. The rhythm of toil intertwines with quiet observation, each action purposeful, each breath deliberate. A traveling monk passes by, carrying a bundle of scrolls and murmuring prayers. Villagers bow respectfully, offering small portions of rice or water. You nod silently, reflecting on the layers of belief, ritual, and practicality that govern daily life. Outside, the empire stretches vast and indifferent, yet the orchard, the fields, and the river remind you that survival is tangible, rooted in immediate care and labor. As evening descends, the orchard is tended, fruit nurtured, and the village prepares for the calm of night. Lanterns are lit along narrow paths, fires burn low, and children are herded indoors. You sit beside the hearth with your wife, warmth seeping into your tired body. The moon rises slowly, silver over the paddies, and the wind whispers through leaves and reeds. You feel the gentle pull of sleep, the day's labor dissolving into calm, as the village settles into quiet assurance once more. The sun rises softly, painting the village with pale gold that stretches across mud walls, rice paddies, and thatched roofs. You awaken, muscles stiff, every joint reminding you of days past, yet necessity urges you to stand. The straw mat offers little comfort, but its familiarity eases the morning. You stretch deliberately, flexing aching fingers and back, before stoking the fire to life. The aroma of smoke mingles with the faint scent of wet earth, carrying you into another day of toil. Today, your task is to repair the village's boundary embankments. Heavy rains have washed away sections, and the water threatens to overflow into homes and fields alike. You gather reeds, mud, and stones, working in tandem with other villagers. Your hands, raw and blistered, mold and press the mud, weaving the reeds carefully to hold the fragile walls together. Every motion is practiced, precise, and exhausting, yet necessary for survival. A fringe practice lingers. Some villagers place small charms atop the embankments, believing spirits protect the village from floods. You tuck one carefully into the mud, half in superstition, half in respect. Historians still argue whether such rituals had deeper spiritual significance or were symbolic acts of communal cohesion. For you, it is enough that it feels protective, a gesture against the unpredictability of nature. By midday, the sun beats down relentlessly, water from the nearby canal reflecting bright light into your eyes. Sweat drips into the mud, soaking your hair and clothing. Your wife appears with a small meal wrapped in lotus leaves, millet porridge, pickled vegetables, and a thin slice of salted fish. You eat quickly, savoring the warmth and slight reprieve, then return to the embankments with renewed determination. The afternoon stretches, long and laborious. You adjust the reeds, press mud into gaps, and reinforce weak spots. Your back aches, hands stiffen, yet there is a rhythm in the repetition, a hypnotic flow that keeps the mind focused despite fatigue. Children peek from the embankment's edges, imitating your movements with sticks and mud, their laughter faint against the backdrop of relentless labor. Occasionally, a traveler passes through, speaking of taxes, distant harvests, or imperial decrees. The words drift past you, largely irrelevant. Your life is measured in mud, water, reeds, and survival. The empire may be vast, but your reality is immediate, tactile, and unforgiving. By evening, the embankments are repaired, water flowing smoothly, fields protected. You trudge home, mud clinging to every leg, exhaustion heavy yet tempered by satisfaction. The village settles around you, fires burn low, animals rest, and lanterns flicker along narrow paths. You sit beside the hearth with your wife, warmth seeping into your body, the quiet of evening soothing your spirit. Outside, the moon rises over the paddies, silver and steady, wind rustling through reeds. Your muscles relax, your mind drifts, and sleep beckons softly, inevitable and gentle. The night stretches slowly, deepening around the village like a soft, thick blanket. You lie on your straw mat, body heavy but calm, listening to the faint chorus of frogs and insects in the paddies, the whisper of wind through reeds, and the distant croak of a heron settling for the night. Every breath you take seems slower, measured, harmonizing with the quiet pulse of life around you. You remember the repetitive tasks of the day, the embankments mended, the orchards tended, the paddies nurtured, and feel a subtle pride. Each action, though small and exhausting, was a thread in the fragile tapestry of survival, a testament to persistence against the indifferent rhythms of nature and empire. Even the simple gestures of shared meals, whispered prayers, and paper charms tucked into mud or reeds carry a quiet weight, grounding you in continuity and care. Outside, the moon casts silver reflections over water, faintly illuminating the village paths, huts, and paddies. The light is soft, almost hypnotic, weaving calm into your thoughts. The distant sounds, the croak of frogs, the rustle of leaves, fade into a lullaby that blends with your steady, slowing heartbeat. Your muscles relax completely, letting the day's labor dissolve into warmth and gentle exhaustion. In this quiet, you feel connected to the small, enduring life of the village. Every struggle, every tiny victory, every shared smile and whispered gesture carries you closer to rest. You breathe deeply, letting your mind drift over fields, ponds, orchards, and embankments, all bathed in moonlight. Slowly, inevitably, sleep wraps around you, soft and whispering, a gentle tide pulling you from wakefulness. You feel the continuity of life, the comfort of labor completed, and the calm certainty that tomorrow will follow its rhythm.